My mom secretly took out a $653,000 mortgage, not for herself, but for my sister. I had no idea until one day she looked me in the eye and said, "You're going to help pay it." That's when everything changed. Years of favoritism suddenly made sense, but the truth was worse than I imagined. I was never the priority. I was the backup plan. This is the story of betrayal, family pressure, and the moment I finally decided enough was enough. That sentence destroyed a family in under 60 seconds. One phone call, one demand, one number that made my stomach drop.
She didn't ask. She didn't warn me.
She just decided. And when I said no, that's when things got truly ugly. What my mom pulled next, and what my sister had been hiding for years, I never saw coming. And trust me, neither will you. I'm Marcus, 34, male. I work as a senior civil engineer for a mid-sized infrastructure firm in Columbus, Ohio. I own my house. I max out my 401k. I drive a 6-year-old truck I bought used and paid off in 3 years. I am not rich, but I am disciplined. I built everything I have from scratch, starting with student loans and a 2-bedroom apartment I shared with 2 roommates after college. I say all of this not to brag, but because what happened next only makes sense if you understand exactly who I was before it happened. A guy who played by the rules, kept his head down, and genuinely believed his family respected that. My sister is 29. She lives in Nashville. She's always been the one who operated in a different financial universe, not a richer one, just a more chaotic one. Designer bags on a waitress salary. Vacations funded by credit cards. A series of guys who had potential. My parents, especially my mom, always had a soft spot for her that bordered on irrational. Mom would slip her money at Christmas without telling Dad. She'd cover her cell phone bill just this once for about 4 consecutive years. I noticed, I said nothing, I moved on. Then, 14 months ago, my phone rang on a Tuesday afternoon.
Mom.
I picked up expecting the usual catch-up conversation. How's work? Are you eating enough? Instead, she said, flat and direct, I need to talk to you about your sister's situation. It's gotten serious. I sat down. She's in debt, Mom said. Bad debt. A credit cards, a personal loan she took out 2 years ago, and she borrowed money from someone she shouldn't have borrowed from. I asked how much. A pause. Then, total, counting interest and fees, that's close to $90,000. I exhaled slowly. That was bad. That was genuinely, seriously bad. But it was manageable, I thought. There were options. Debt consolidation. A payment plan. A bankruptcy attorney. I started mentally running through possibilities. Then Mom said the part that knocked the air out of me. I already handled it. What do you mean you already handled it? I took out a home equity loan, she said, on the house, to pay off her debts and give her a fresh start. I gripped the phone tighter. How much, Mom? Another pause. Longer this time. $653,000. The number didn't register for a full 3 seconds. I actually said what out loud, not as a question, just as a noise my body made involuntarily. The house appraised high, she said quickly, like that explained anything. And there was room to pull equity, and she needed more than just the debt payoff. She needed a cushion, a down payment for an apartment, money to get stable. Mom. I stopped her. You took out a $653,000 mortgage on your home. For my sister. It's a home equity line, technically. Mom. Silence. She can't pay it back, I said. It wasn't a question. That's what I wanted to talk to you about. And then she said it. The line that split my life into before and after. You're in a good place financially, Marcus. You're stable. You're responsible. This is your sister. It's your responsibility to help keep this family together. I sat there for what felt like a full minute without speaking. You want me to pay your $600,000 mortgage, I said slowly, that you took out without telling me, to pay off debts my sister ran up on her own, and you're framing this as my responsibility. I'm not framing anything. She's your sister. Family takes care of family. I take care of myself, I said. I have always taken care of myself. I have never once asked either of you for a cent since I was 22 years old. That's not the point. That is exactly the point, Mom. I told her I needed time to think. She took that as a soft yes. I could hear it in her voice, that slight release of tension, that exhale. She thought she had me. She'd had me before in smaller ways, and she thought this was the same. It wasn't. I spent the next 3 days barely sleeping. I called my dad, who, and this gutted me, already knew. He'd known for 2 weeks and said nothing because, in his words, your mother handles the finances. He sounded ashamed. He should have. But I also heard something in his voice that I hadn't expected. Fear. He was scared of what this loan meant for their retirement. He was scared of my mom's decisions. He had been scared for a long time, I think. I called a financial advisor I trust, a guy named, well, I just call him my advisor, and I walked him through the numbers. He listened without interrupting, which is how I knew it was as bad as I thought. When I finished, he said, Marcus, that HELOC has a repayment structure. If your parents can't service the debt, the bank can move toward foreclosure. That's the reality. Your name is not on this loan. You have zero legal obligation here. Zero. I already knew that. But hearing it said out loud by someone outside my family was clarifying in a way I needed. Then I called my sister. That call did not go the way she expected. So Mom talked to you, she said, and her tone was already slightly defensive, which told me she'd been prepared for this conversation.
She did, I said.
Walk me through how this happened. She gave me the sanitized version. Online shopping got out of hand. A guy she dated convinced her to co-sign a personal loan. Credit cards snowballed. I listened without reacting. Then I asked the question I actually needed answered. Did you ask Mom to do this, or did she offer? Silence. She offered, my sister finally said. But I didn't say no. Did you know what she was taking out against the house? I knew it was a lot. Did you know it was $653,000? A longer pause. I didn't ask for the exact number. I let that sit for a moment.
She didn't ask.
She just took it. A check that size, funded by her parents' home, their retirement, their entire financial security, and she didn't ask for the number. And what's your plan to pay it back? I asked. I'm working on getting more hours. Your plan, I repeated. Not your hope. Your plan. She didn't have one. And that's when the entitlement cracked through. Her voice shifted. She stopped sounding apologetic and started sounding put upon, like I was the unreasonable one. I didn't ask you to get involved, Marcus. Mom came to you. If you don't want to help, just say that, but don't act like I did something to you. You put Mom in a position where she mortgaged her home for $90,000 worth of decisions you made. You didn't stop her. You took the money. And now she's calling me to fix it. She loves me. She wanted to help. She loves you so much she may lose her house, I said. Think about that. She hung up. Within a week, the campaign began. My mom called every other day, sometimes twice a day. Each call had a different angle. The first angle was guilt. I did everything for you kids. I worked 2 jobs when you were in middle school. True. She had. And I'd never forgotten it, but I'd also repaid it by becoming the kind of son who never needed anything. The second angle was fear. If we lose the house, your father and I have nothing. Is that what you want? The third angle was comparison. Your uncle helped his family when they needed him. My uncle co-signed a car loan, which is not the same universe as $600,000. My sister deployed her own tactics. She texted me long messages about how I'd always been Mom and Dad's favorite in terms of expectations, how I'd been allowed to just leave for college and build my own life while she stayed close and supported the family. This was a creative rewrite of history. I'd left for college on academic scholarship. She'd stayed in state by choice and spent more time at the mall than with my parents. She also, and this is where it shifted from frustrating to genuinely concerning, apparently told several extended family members a version of events in which I had promised to help, and then backed out. My cousin texted me asking why I was leaving Aunt in trouble when I could easily fix it. 2 aunts called my mother to encourage her to keep trying with me. The family pressure machine was operating at full capacity, and I hadn't promised a single thing. I documented every call. I started keeping a log, dates, times, what was said. My advisor told me this was smart. So did the estate attorney I quietly consulted. Because here's the thing nobody in my family seemed to have thought through. My parents' home was now leveraged to the hilt against a loan they had no plan to repay. If they defaulted, that was a foreclosure. Foreclosure at their age, my dad is 64, my mom is 61, meant no asset to draw on in retirement. It meant potential financial ruin. This wasn't a family drama problem. This was a legal and financial crisis unfolding in slow motion. I was not going to fund my sister's lifestyle and my mother's enabling, but I was also not going to watch my parents lose everything without doing something. So I made a plan, and I kept it to myself. The first thing I did was contact the bank holding the HELOC, not to pay it, to understand it. I called as a concerned family member, identified myself, and asked general questions about their hardship and modification programs. I learned enough. Then I sat down with my parents, in person, driving 4 hours to their house in Cincinnati, and I laid it out. Not emotionally, not with blame, just the numbers. I put a spreadsheet on their kitchen table. Their monthly HELOC payment based on current interest rates, their combined income, their Social Security projections,
Their savings.
the gap. My dad went quiet. My mom started to cry. Not from manipulation, genuinely. I think it was the first time she'd actually looked at the numbers herself. You can't pay this, I said gently. Not as it stands. And I'm not going to pay it for you. But here's what I'm willing to do. I told them I would pay for them to consult with both a HUD-approved housing counselor and a bankruptcy attorney. I would help them understand every legitimate option, loan modification, selling the house and downsizing, structured repayment negotiation with the bank. I would be there for every meeting if they wanted me there. What I would not do is absorb this debt, because doing so would simply delay the problem, enable my sister further, and bankrupt me in the process. Then I looked at my mom directly and said, "What was done is done. I'm not angry at you, but my sister is 29 years old, and she needs to face what she created. I love you. I will help you find a solution. I will not be the solution." My mom cried harder. My dad nodded slowly. And then my dad said something I didn't expect. He said, "Your sister borrowed more than your mother told you." I looked at him. "She came to your mother 3 separate times over 2 years," he said. "The first time it was $20,000. Your mother handled it quietly. The second time it was $35,000.
Same.
This was the third time. Your mother went to the bank because she thought she could keep fixing it without anyone knowing. My mother couldn't look at me. So this wasn't one impulsive decision. This was a pattern. A secret system of financial bailouts that my father had only partially known about, funded increasingly through their home equity, that had now reached a scale that threatened everything they owned. And my sister had come back a third time. Knowing what the first 2 times had cost, now I moved from defensive to deliberate. I hired a forensic accountant. Well, retained one for a few hours of consultation, to help me understand if any of my sister's debt transfers could be considered fraudulent conveyance, or if there was any angle where she could be held legally responsible to my parents. The answer was nuanced, but there was something there. Because my mother had, in at least one instance, paid off a personal loan in my sister's name directly, there was a paper trail. And the forensic accountant helped me understand that my parents could potentially pursue a civil claim against my sister for recovery of those funds. I did not tell my sister this was coming. I spent 3 weeks compiling documentation. Bank statements my dad quietly forwarded me. Dates and amounts of each transfer my mother had made. Texts between my mother and sister, which my mother gave me access to willingly once she understood the full picture, that showed my sister explicitly requesting money, minimizing amounts, and in one case explicitly saying, "Don't tell Marcus or Dad." That one text. She had specifically asked our mother to hide this from me and from my father. She had knowingly kept my father in the dark. She had engineered secrecy to protect her access to my parents' money. That wasn't just entitlement. That was manipulation. Deliberate, sustained manipulation. I sent everything to the attorney. We filed a civil suit against my sister on behalf of my parents, with my parents' full consent and participation, once they understood what had been hidden even from my dad, for recovery of funds transferred under false pretense and undue influence. The total amount across all three incidents, documented, $127,400. Not the full helic, but the portion directly traceable to transfers made to my sister or on her behalf. When my sister was served, she called me screaming. Genuinely screaming. "You're suing me? Your own family? I can't believe you." "I didn't sue you," I said calmly. "Mom and Dad sued you. With documentation you didn't know they had. You turned them against me. You sent a text telling Mom to hide money from Dad and for me. For years. That's not me turning anyone against anyone. That's you." She went silent. "You want to make this go away?" I said. "Sit down with Mom and Dad and a mediator and create an actual repayment plan. One with teeth. One that's legally documented. Do that and they can drop the suit. Don't do that and this goes to court and everything, including those texts, becomes part of the public record." She agreed to mediation within 2 weeks. The mediation was 4 hours long and deeply uncomfortable. My sister came in with an attitude that lasted about 45 minutes before the mediator, a sharp woman who had clearly seen this dynamic before, started presenting documents. The entitlement bled out of my sister's posture slowly, replaced with something closer to genuine shock as she realized how thoroughly everything had been documented. She agreed to a legally binding repayment agreement, structured payments to my parents over 7 years, with interest totaling the $127,400. She put up her car as collateral. She agreed to financial counseling as a condition of the agreement. Meanwhile, the HUD counselor helped my parents negotiate a loan modification on the helic, lower interest, extended term, reduced monthly payment. It wasn't painless. They had to liquidate a small investment account. But they kept the house. They kept their stability. My mother called me afterward and said, quietly, "I'm sorry I put this on you." I told her I knew she did it from love. I told her love without limits isn't always kindness.
She was quiet for a long time.
"I know," she finally said. "My sister and I have not spoken since mediation except through the attorney's updates. Maybe someday that changes. Maybe it doesn't. What I know is she is now legally accountable for her actions in a way she never has been before, and my parents have a path forward that doesn't require me to sacrifice my financial future." I played by the rules. I kept my head down. And when someone tried to hand me a $653,000 bill for someone else's decisions and call it family obligation, I said no. That's not coldness. That's the most loving thing I knew how to do. If you made it to the end of the story, you just sat through a $653,000 family betrayal, 3 secret bailouts, a forensic accountant, and a courtroom moment that made a 29-year-old finally look at a spreadsheet for the first time in her life. The least you can do is hit subscribe, because if you don't, I'm assuming you're currently hiding financial transfers from your family too, and we're going to need to talk. All right, I have to ask, when my sister sent that text telling Mom to hide everything from Dad and from me, what would you have done? Because a lot of people would have just written the check and called it family loyalty. But Marcus said absolutely not, and built a legal case instead. Drop in the comments, do you think he went too far? Or did his sister get exactly what she earned? And if you've got a family member who treats "I love you" as a blank check, hit subscribe, because clearly we have a lot to talk about.